Well, the Justice Department filed a lawsuit today suing the state of California for allegedly violating Title IX and denying athletic opportunities for girls. So the suit accuses the state of engaging in what they call unfair competition and reckless endangerment by allowing male participation on female high school sports teams. So we want to bring in CBS News Justice reporter Jake Rosen for more on this. Of course, we're talking about the issue of transgender athletes. What are the allegations listed in that suit?
Well, Reed, the Trump administration kind of telegraphed this earlier in June, in which the Attorney General in charge of civil rights operations at the Department of Justice said that she was opening an investigation into California for tweaking a policy that they previously had, which fully allowed a transgender athlete to compete in sports at whatever gender that they align with, and that as a result of this new policy, additional racers, if this was a track and field event per se, were allowed to compete in that, and that if there was a medaling, people who ranked below them were allowed to all medal together. Kind of a move by this organization to allow for some more equality and at least trying a new solution to a problem that just does not seem to go away. And at least the Trump administration is trying to make a case out of states who do not cooperate by threatening to withhold federal funding. We saw this with Maine, in which the Department of Justice sued in April over the same exact issue. In this specific case, they cite 5 specific student examples across the state of California. They sued the Department of Education in California, in addition to a non-governmental organization that runs the state's student sports. Certainly a move that, again, is meant to go after not just California, but also raise awareness of this issue in ordinance with a Trump administration executive order earlier this year that said that the Department of Justice should be willing to go after these states for alleged Title IX violations. I will point out, Reed, no judge has so far sided with the Trump administration's definition of these civil rights violations so far.
Well, and at the behest of California Governor Gavin Newsom, California lawmakers met long before President Trump got the keys back to the White House, talking about funding lawsuits just like this. So it's likely California will continue digging in its heels and fight right back. Want to talk about another issue. The Department of Justice has accused 2 people of selling a rifle to Ryan Ruth, who we know is charged with trying to kill President Trump at his golf course last year. So how does the DOJ detail how Ruth acquired that gun?
Well, we looked into these court documents last night after a conservative blog picked them up. In the initial charging documents, it does not mention anything about Ryan Ruth, just that these 2 individuals sold the firearm illegally to someone who is prohibited from having them. After these people were arrested and then pled guilty earlier this year, one of them pled guilty yesterday. These factual allegations came to light that Ruth approached a former coworker of his from a roofing company and asked for a potential AK-47 for sale if that person had one. This person said they didn't, but a coworker of theirs did. Essentially, all 3 of them met up at a roofing company. The middleman was paid $100 cash to kind of set up this deal, and Ruth paid $350 cash for a Chinese equivalent of an AK-47, which it is likely he used in that brief attack on President Trump at his golf course in Florida in September. This all happened about a month before in August. There's no indication so far that these people knew what Ruth was up to, although notably, Reed, there was some covering of the tracks of these people after they saw the assassination attempt, telling each other that they don't know anything, trying to don't volunteer any information to the FBI. And in addition to that, it's certainly notable that these people did know of Ruth's previous issues in which he had potentially said he wanted to blow up a police department and was a felon and could not own a firearm.
All right, Jake, thank you so much for those updates. We appreciate it.